Elul is a month-long holiday, or Hol month, that marks the end of one Jewish year and helps to transition into the beginning of a new one. Traditionally, it is a month of introspection, contemplation, and personal growth. Untraditionally, or at least less traditionally, Elul Unbound is a digital initiative offering up a wide variety of avenues for experimenting over the course of this month. Sign up to join Elul Unbound's email list and learn more about all of Elul Unbound's offerings by heading to judaismunbound.com/ELUL. This is a special bonus edition of Judaism Unbound. Elul Unbound number 18, Every Second Counts. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lex Rofberg.
And I'm Wendy Bernstein-Lash.
And I'm Micah Sandman.
Micah Sandman! We've got a new third host in Elul Unbound this time around. This is a very exciting moment. We're not going to say a full Shehechianu, a full blessing for new firsts, but it's very, very cool. Micah, what are you doing here? Who are you?
Well, thanks, Lex. My name's Micah, and I am a new program associate with Judaism Unbound. So I get to do some fun things here. And one of those fun things is working with Lex and Wendy on Elul Unbound. And so I've been a listener for a while, so I've been familiar with the program, but now I get to be behind the scenes, which is super cool.
You get to be behind the scenes, in front of the curtain too, with mic in hand. I said mic in hand, and it sounded like Micah. That wasn't on purpose. But with mic in front of you, broadcasting your voice to all the people. It's a very exciting moment. And also, Wendy, you are not as new, but we're just as excited to have you here. Who are you, Wendy Bernstein-Lash? You're not here for every one of our core Judaism Unbound episodes. Tell us more.
Well, we started the Elul Unbound project as the first community project for Judaism Unbound. So I'm very excited to be here in the 6th year of it, bringing Elul as a spiritual practice and journey to Judaism Unbound listeners.
Love it. And just to underscore that, Elul Unbound, I'm going to say more about what that means in a minute, but it was our first ever experience as a Judaism Unbound organization where it was not just one directional, where we started bringing people together, gathered in spaces in Zoom. This was before Zoom was all the rage. We beat the tide by a couple of years.
Trendsetters.
But it's a very important moment for us every year to reconnect to that sort of root that became a very prominent part of our organization. But I will say more about that in a second. Before I do, in order to understand what Elul Unbound means, you have to know what Elul means, which we have not at all defined yet. So we've gotten a couple minutes in, and that word is still floating. Wendy, what the heck is Elul, and why is it worth marking?
Elul is a month in the Jewish calendar, the last month before Rosh Hashanah. And it is a month that traditionally people have used to prepare for the new year. And that preparation includes being introspective and reflective, looking back on the prior year, and doing tshuva, which that Hebrew word means either repentance, one way to translate it, or returning is another way to translate it. And we're looking back at the year, seeing where maybe we missed the mark and trying to clear out and reflect so that when we hit Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're ready.
You talked about it as this preparation stage for the high holidays for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We've used the framework of on-ramp for many years. It's become our mantra for this month. It's an on-ramp month. It serves that role. It helps you in a gradual, I'm thinking of the term inclined plane, this like gradual on-ramp into two big holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and to some extent other holidays that come afterwards in the month of Tishrei, the first month of our modern Jewish calendrical year. And we also think that Elul is its own thing. So we like play this tension where it's an on-ramp to something else, and it's really deeply worthwhile in and of itself. And so that's how we understand this month. There's often not, for different holidays, on-ramps into them. You could sort of argue that, the period before Passover, Passover's in the middle of the month of Nisan, so the first couple weeks of that month, you're sort of supposed to be getting prepped. But I don't know if it really operates that way in a deep way. But traditionally, Elul really does. We have this existing mechanism to get us into those moments of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I think without Elul, we just boom, we're dropped into whether it's a synagogue context or some other context. And we're just, I guess I'm repenting now, or I'm trying to look inward now. I got a couple hours. How's that going to go? And sometimes it goes okay. And sometimes it's harder because we haven't had that on-ramp. So that's what Elul is meant to be. And Elul Unbound is our Judaism Unbound way of practicing Elul. It's not that creative a name. But we do a bunch of different things throughout this month to try to serve that on-ramp purpose. One of those things is that we release these bonus episodes of the podcast once a week, separate from our core episodes. So we still have the general flow of our podcast, but then we have these Elul-specific ones that are meant to help us look inward, think about the spiritual work we want to do in the next little bit. And we also have Zoom gatherings every week that are open to anyone who wants to come. They're on Fridays. This year, they're mostly going to be on Friday evenings, and they'll double as a chance to mark Shabbat. I should say Friday evenings, U.S. East Coast time. We have people from all around the world that often come to these, including folks sometimes in Australia who are like, hey, it's Saturday morning here, which is very fun. But we will have those opportunities to come together. Those are free, available to the public. And we have, weekly themes that we explore first on the mini podcast, but then also in that group. We have emails that go out a few times each week throughout the month featuring cool content, articles to read, meditations or practices to try out, all sorts of different experimental modalities that we get right to your inbox if you sign up for the Elul Unbound email list, which you should do at judaismunbound.com/Elul, E-L-U-L. And all of that is meant to make this month soak in a deep way. And we have fun with it. It's not this deeply solemn down thing. I think people sometimes think of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as serious, which sure, they are. We're looking inward and trying to improve as people and as communities and as a world. But we also send little fun wake-ups in each of these emails that are sometimes, a shofar blast. Other times, they're a little more creative and wild. So all of those are meant to help us wake up to the holiday spirit. And I'm saying holiday spirit consciously because that's usually used by other groups of people at different times of year. But I think we can still have holiday spirit.
In the first year, we coined the term Chala month because it's a month you can play around with it and not feel like, oh, wait, what am I going to do this year? You can try different things out, and we're going to be offering different things for you to do.
An amazing Chala month. The whole month is imbued with a level of awesomeness and sacredness and experimentation for us. And so now we got to say the classic question, which is usually associated with Passover, but we're applying it here. Why is this Elul Unbound different from all other Eluls Unbound? What's going to differentiate this year from our past years? Do we have a theme or something like that, Micah? Help jog my memory.
I'm so glad you asked. The exciting theme for this year's Elul Unbound programming is going to be twos, also paired with the idea of Shana, which means year in Hebrew. But there's some pretty cool, significant wordplay involved with the word Shana and its meaning associated with twos and all sorts of things. So this idea for the theme of twos sort of came about because Judaism Unbound did a bunch of stuff related to the Shemitah year. Shemitah is a 7-year cycle. We just had our first year of Shemitah. We're entering into the second year of Shemitah. And we didn't want to forget that this is an ongoing cycle and something that's structuring our lives. And we wanted to delve into the meaning of twos in our second year and think about the significance of doubles, of second chances, of repetitions. And I was talking to my boyfriend's mother yesterday, and she was saying that when her kids were learning to play piano, they would get frustrated learning to play the piano. And she would tell them that she had a rule of 4 tries, and that the first time you were trying something, that was sort of, a wash. But the second time was you should learn a little bit more. The second time was distinct from the first. And so I think we wanted to take this amount of time to think about what makes twos, seconds, different from the first time we go through things or we experience things in terms of Jewish wisdom, in terms of personal significance as part of this on-ramp to the high holidays.
Micah, I love what you're saying about piano practice, the on the second time you start to get a little deeper. You've also like given maybe a sneak preview of year 3 and year 4 of the Shemitah cycle, what we'll have to do with Elul Unbound. I'm sure that'll be the next levels of learning musically. But because you brought in music, I was also thinking a little bit about musical, I don't want to say metaphors, because I think there's like a realness to it. It's not just standing for realness, but a musical connection, which is the repeat sign at the end of a composition. So there's a lot of music where you don't just do it once. And Jewishly, I mean, there's a lot of melodies in a liturgical context where you're meant to apply that melody multiple times. And I think that can go different directions. I remember growing up in band class, I played clarinet, and sometimes we'd do the song, we'd get to the repeat, we'd go back, and you could tell just like we got bored. And so the second time wasn't as good. And it wasn't as articulated. Our dynamics were less up and down. And it was just like we got lackadaisical because we're like, we know that. And the band director, Dr. Schuler, loved that man. He would tell us that. And like, no. The second time through, if anything, you want to level it up a little bit, bring something new to the equation. The first time through, there's a reason for the repeat sign. It's not just random. Like you're meant to bring another layer. Maybe that it's you up the dynamics a little louder, whatever it might be. But I think this second year, it absolutely should be, a check-in. What was the essence? What were some of my core commitments when we started this new Shemitah cycle at the beginning of last year? Okay, what do I want to add on? What do I want to layer on? What's my dynamic contrast for this repeat sign compared to the first one? What's beautiful is that built into our word for a new year, Shana Tova, have a good year. Shana Tova does not mean Happy New Year directly. It means good year. But the reason why we often say Happy New Year or have a good New Year is that built into the word Shana is kind of the notion of starting something anew. It means year, but it also means cycle. And so we're kind of wishing one another, have a nice cycle. Which that's kind of profound, right? It even as you start the year, you're not thinking of it as like fully its own unit. You're thinking of it as a cycle within a broader maybe spiral. And Wendy, I'm curious if you have other layers to this Shana, this repetition, this seconds theme.
Well, as a musician myself, I totally resonate with that. And I remember I got it later. I got it in college. When I was preparing for something, I was doing a duet, and I wasn't playing the piano, I was playing the oboe, and the piano person had brought her teacher in, and she said to us, like, why would the composer have you repeat this? You've got to find something unique and beautiful in that. And I just thought, oh, that is such a cool way to look at it.
That's so rabbinic. Like, there must be a reason. It's
Yes.
not a typo. There's a reason that the Torah said
There's a reason
it.
for everything. So why do we have seconds? So I'm really excited to look at the magic and the beauty of seconds, because we put a lot of attention on the first time we do something. Hey, Shehechianu, we have a blessing for every first. We don't have a blessing for every second. Hey, Lex, maybe we should create one.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
But that idea that not only let's make the seconds, but they are inherently, because they are second times, second choices, second chances, second cycles, that we're not in that, as you say, that early learning phase where everything's new and we don't quite have a scaffolding to put it on. But it's like, okay, I've done this once. Now I can mine it. I can go deeper. I can see what's the beauty that I couldn't see when I was trying to learn how to do it. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to explore with listeners about what we can do with seconds in all sorts of ways. And the Torah starts with the second letter of the alphabet. It doesn't start with the aleph, it starts with the bet. That's pretty cool. So it's already baked into our tradition. We just have to kind of find the juiciness of it.
I love that. And Lex has already sort of mentioned that the word sheni, which is second in Hebrew, the same root as shnia, which is the unit of time, seconds in Hebrew. So maybe we should wind up calling this whole thing seconds, and that can be interpreted as it is, even second helpings of dinner, which I'm a huge fan of. But
second dinner, like in Lord of the Rings.
Second dinner, exactly. So the other thing I was thinking about was when you said, Lex and Wendy, you were talking about doing these second endings in a musical composition. maybe there is something important about the way that we get complacent, or people can be complacent if we don't try to mine a meaning of why would a composer have written that we should do this twice? Or if you're in year 2 of the Shemitah cycle, it's pretty normal that we would forget that we're in the middle of Shemitah. And so not only to have a structure that would bring us back to remembering that and to finding a deeper meaning, but also to say that it's okay that we forget. Maybe that's part of our natural mechanism, and maybe we even shouldn't view it as, maybe we could view it as complacency. Maybe we could just view it as this is part of our tendency and adjust our perspective so that we see ourselves as part of a bigger cycle or continuum rather than doing something once every year, every week, every 7 years that crops up out of nowhere. And I think that's part of what it means to have Elul as an on-ramp, because why would we need a month to prepare for the high holidays? What is it about that broader picture of prayer, of spiritual connection, that would necessitate that kind of on-ramp? So I think seconds make us zoom out and think about things in context a little bit.
I hadn't thought about this, but I love that you brought in forgetting and remembering, because to me, that's exactly what spiritual practices are about, is like we are naturally forgetters. We have so much going on. We set an intention and then we forget, and we have to be reminded about it. So it just seems like, oh yeah, of course we forget, instead of, oh, I forgot. The only other time there's a really long month of something that you do in Judaism, at least for me, is the Omer period. This is right after Passover, the bridge between Passover and Shavuot holidays. It's a little bit longer. It's 49 days. And it's like, I have never once in my life done it every single day, what my intention that I set out. But now I don't feel bad about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I get to get back on. This is forgiveness, right? A time of forgiveness. Forgiveness for ourselves, for being human and forgetting. So thank you for bringing that up, Micah.
So I'm loving the connection to Shnia, to the unit of time that is a second. And I think it ties to this idea of forgetting, remembering that has come up. What do we say when we're mid-thought and trying to communicate with somebody and we forget what we wanted to say?
Give me a second.
Give me a second. That's so built into us that a second, even when we don't mean a literal 1/60th of a minute, like a second is the unit of time that refers to the amount of time it takes to like remember a thing. Give me a second. Oh, now we're back. And also, I want to note that in Hebrew and in English, the words for the unit of time, 1/60th of a minute, and the words for the second time you do a thing are the same word. It's not just that they're related, like they're the same. Well, in Hebrew, I guess it's a shared root, but shniya and sheni, they are truly built on the same foundation. And in English, again, it's just a second and the second of something, the second time, the second ending, to go to the musical language that we were using before. So that's really cool to me, that we have that parallel linguistically. When there's things that are the case in multiple human languages, I think it points to like something deep underneath them. And, you know, I think what I am sort of gleaning from this is a teaching of sort of, let's make every second count. And I want to hear that as both seconds. The cliche one that I remember growing up at summer camp, like, don't count the days, make the days count. Like, make every second count. Super. But I've never thought of it as make every second count. Make every second incidence of something count. Make every repetition count. And that's really interesting. That gives me an intention for this year. There's a lot of stuff that I do more than once. And I think in general, I am more thoughtful about them the first time than the second time. I think it's worth holding that, and also striving, even though it's cliche, towards making all of the 31,536,000 seconds of this coming year count. I say that number because even in the song of Rent that is known for making us cherish every moment in a year, it only says how many minutes. It says 525,600 minutes. It does not get to seconds. So let's shoot to make 31,536,000 seconds count this year. Wendy, any closing thoughts before we head out?
I'm just inspired to see if for the month of Elul, I can make all the seconds be not seconds as in 1/60th of a minute, but make all the second times I do something, the seconds be spectacular. Like I'm going to set that as an intention. I know that I won't keep it, but I'll keep coming back to it. It gives me such energy to think about what am I going to do differently in Elul this year? Make the seconds shine. The second times of anything shine.
And shine in English, of course, if we were going to make up a Hebrew root, which is not real, don't cite me on this linguistically, it would be shin nun, which is the root of shana, of shniya, of all these things. So make the shniyas, the shniyot, shine. The shanim, the years, the cycles shine. I never thought about that. Literally the word for year and the word for second, it's like wild that's
like a big nesting doll.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what it is, Micah.
We don't in English refer to our, like, the words for second and year are different, but if every unit of time is just a smaller version of the same word, I think that is such a different way to view time.
And now, since you said nesting doll, I'm thinking about the show Russian Doll, which I'm not going to go into because we don't have time, but I think there's connections here. Anyway, the overflowing conversation we're having in this moment is a model for what's going to happen this entire month. And we really, really hope that you will participate in any of a number of ways. There's a few. First, again, our email list, which you can find at judaismunbound.com/ELUL. Sign up for it. We would love to have you all aboard receiving different bits of content. We send out stories, we send out videos, we send out meditations, practices, all of that good stuff, songs. That's an asynchronous way to participate where you don't have to set aside a particular moment in your life to spend with us. There's also our Zoom gatherings, which is setting aside a specific section of time on Fridays. And so our first Zoom gathering is going to be this Friday evening at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, Saturday morning Australia time, middle of the night Europe time if you really would like to come. We have had people do that. We will move the time around at least once this month so that we can accommodate different time zones. But also, we have a 3-week mini course experience that Wendy is going to be teaching. That's going to start a little bit of the way through Elul and take those in it right up to Rosh Hashanah. So Wendy, can you tell us a little bit about what that class is going to be?
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's designed to explore the spirituality and spiritual practices of Elul, both some traditional ones and what I'm calling sparkly new ones or renewed ones. And it's a time for you to try and create your own toolbox, your toolkit of what you're going to use for Elul. And if you missed the first one, they're all going to be recorded, so you can join us midstream as well.
And you can register at judaismunbound.com/classes for this awesome mini course. It's going to be amazing. Wendy is awesome and a wonderful teacher. So with that, we are going to close things out. Thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks to Micah for your first grand appearance on Judaism Unbound's airwaves. There will be future ones, you can be sure. But Micah will be along for the ride in many ways throughout this month. And so I'm going to actually give you the last word before I remind folks of the different website links and all that. So Micah.
Yeah, so I will be on the Elul Unbound Zoom gatherings. I'm so excited to see folks in the Judaism Unbound community via Zoom to gather on a Friday evening. And then I will also be working with Wendy to send out the content that you're going to be receiving in Elul Unbound emails. So that might be some articles or poems or songs. And then personally, I'm excited to honestly give myself a proper on-ramp into the high holidays. I'm really looking forward, and I'm so happy to be here. So thanks, Lex. Thanks, Wendy.
Amazing. And thanks everyone out there listening. We always close our core episodes with telling people to be in touch with us. We mean that times 2. We mean that the first time, the second time, we mean it all Shana, all year. We mean it every second of this show. Please send us notes. Please be in touch. It means the world to us. And you can do so in any of the following ways. You can head to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram feeds. All of those are at Judaism Unbound. You can, again, sign up for our email list at judaismunbound.com/ELUL. Also at that website, you will be able to see all of our different kinds of content and learn more about Elul and see some resources from past years. Super great place to go. And you can always email us. You can email us at Elul, E-L-U-L, at JudaismUnbound.com. If you send an email to that address, it will go to me, it will go to Wendy, and it will go to Micah. So that's really awesome. You can also send Micah or I direct notes as Judaism Unbound staff at lex@JudaismUnbound.com or Micah@JudaismUnbound.com. So thanks to everybody for hopping aboard this first bonus episode of Elul. We've got 3 more coming your way each of the next few weeks. And with that, this has been Judaism Unbound.